My name is Juliana Nicolajan with the Oklahoma State University Library. Today is Thursday, August 4th, 2016, and I'm in Vinita, Oklahoma, interviewing Wayne Bowie as part of our Spotlighting Oklahoma Oral History project. We're meeting with Wayne today to talk about his experiences working at the Glass House restaurant here in Vinita. But Wayne, before we get going, I'd like to learn a little bit more about you. Could you tell me the year you were born and where you were born?
I was born in 1943, and I was born actually in the Estella community, which is west of Vinita, about 14-15 miles.
And tell me a little bit about your parents.
Well, they were farmers. For my first 7-8 years, I lived on a farm, and we did all of the farming stuff. We milked cows, and we raised beef, and we raised hogs, and we raised crops, and then I guess I was probably 8 when my dad sold the farm, and he was a heavy machinery operator for a while. Then he went to work for the Ford Company here in Vinita, and he worked for them a long time. And then my mom was a housewife. She stayed home with us kids because there was 5 of us. And then Dad was Craig County Commissioner for about 12 years, and he retired.
And so you moved to town?
No, we didn't move to town. I didn't move to town until after I got married.
Oh, wow.
We lived in the country.
So after your parents sold the farm...
We built a house on a little acreage out west of town.
Okay.
We were actually country people. So that's what we knew.
Well, where did you go to school when you were growing up?
Okay, went to school at White Oak. Actually, the first 2 years, my first and second grade, I went to school at Central, Oklahoma. I'm one of the very few left that went to school in Central, because they closed that school down later. Then we moved into the White Oak School District, and that's where I finished my school. Was at White Oak.
How many students were in your graduating class?
17.
Woo.
We had a big class.
Wow. And what year did you graduate from high school?
1961.
Okay. So 1961, you graduate from high school, and what are you doing? What comes next?
The summer of '61, and I decided I was going to go to college, and so in the summer of '61, I worked laying asphalt on Highway 69, and that job lasted about 2 months. I did that about 2 months, and then they moved on to Hartshorn, Oklahoma, and so I stayed around Vinita and helped the neighbor bale hay. And then 1st September I started college at NEO, A&M, and that was a new experience for me because college was much different than high school. So that's what I did. I went to college for that year, and so I was working my way through college, and so I didn't have much money left after the first year, so I thought, well, I probably ought to work a little bit and get some money for the next, and work, lay out a year, then get some money for the next year. So that's what I did. But in that meantime, I met a young lady that I thought, probably, of course, we get stars in our eyes, we get, oh, they're pretty, So at that point in time, I thought, well, maybe. And so I went back to college, and we decided that we might get married. So in January of 1964, Donna and I got married. And I went to work, I actually went to work for Conoco at the glass house. I had a job there. I had been interviewed and accepted there. So I went to work for Conoco on February the 1st, 1964. We'd been married 5 days. And we're still married. We're still married. We've been married all of that time. And you know, that's 52 years.
Wow. How did you meet your wife?
At a ball game, because I like to go to ball games, baseball games, and played baseball. And I met her at a baseball game. Now, it wasn't just love at first sight, head over heels, this and that. It took a little while, you know. And so we thought, well, maybe that we didn't know. I mean, at 20 years old, you don't know anything. You just think, excuse me, 20-year-old, but I've been there, you know. But anyway, you know, but that's what happened. We got married, and we're still married because, you know, you take those vows, you know, pretty serious business. It was to me because I never, if I told somebody I was going to do something, that's what I'd done. And I'm still awful blunt. But if I tell you I'm going to do something, that's what I'm going to do. If, you know, unless I'm not capable of doing it at that point in time. So that, you know, that, and Conoco, I went to work Continental Oil Company back then. You know, it's Triangle. It was the fire brand, the brand with the you know, and it had fire on the end of the branded iron, and so that's who I went to work for.
Well, I want to back you up for a second.
Yes.
Do you remember when they were building the turnpike?
Yes, yes. In fact, my dad was in heavy equipment, and he helped build that turnpike. So, you know, as a result, I probably watched a lot of that go up, and that's why I knew. I mean, I knew so much about that building. There's things about that building that people have no idea why they did it, how they did it.
Well, tell me about it. I think that building is such an iconic structure.
Well, the arches, see, that concrete is so deep because it you know, it is because it supports that. It supports all of that, you know, and those things are tremendously deep. And originally, that building was heated with steam. It had steam radiators, and it had 2 boilers. It had 2 boilers, and alternate. They would alternate, and so you had to keep. And we had maintenance men, but at night, if we worked the night shift, and sometimes I did, we had to watch the boilers if it's cold, because if they would go down, and you had to refire them, see, which now you couldn't do that because of OSHA. But and in the summertime, we used chilled water. We had big chillers, and these had pumps on them. Actually, the compressors was like a 50 horsepower electric motor. Those motors weighed about 500 or 600 pounds, and they would chill the water. The water would run through the refrigerated coils and chill that water, and it was pumped upstairs, wherever there was a radiator, that's where it was pumped. And then later on, it was inefficient. Later on, they were in, and I had a hand in that, because when Conoco lost their lease in 1982, I chose not to go with them because they were going other places, and I chose not to stay with Philip Petroleum. But I had a radio telephone first class license that I had acquired in the meantime, and I was electronic technician. So I stayed on with the Turnpike Authority, and we installed, or had installed, refrigerated air conditioners. And another fellow, my brother-in-law, I worked on those. And I worked at that job for 2 years.
Well, I'm going to take you back just a little bit again. You graduate from college from NEO. What was your degree in?
Industrial electronics.
Okay. And so right after you graduated, got married, got a job working for Conoco.
In sales.
Okay. Well, how did you find out about the job?
My brother-in-law.
Okay.
Said, he worked out there. Said, we have an opening. So I went and applied. Mr. Jim Cobb was the supervisor out there.
And so what was the job doing?
Selling. I was a station attendant, and actually they called me, it was a sales representative, because I sold Conoco products, and I sold Conoco to the public. That was the most important part of the job at that point, was selling brand value. Okay?
Very interesting.
Selling brand value. And that's why Continental Oil Company was there. See, they built the building. They paid for the building to get their name out to the public, because there's so many people came through. And I was a representative of Continental Oil Company because I sold their brand. Now, we sold a lot of products. I had no idea I was a salesman, see. But I knew I could do anything, because if I wanted to, and I wanted to because I had a wife.
So when they hired you in 1964, do you remember how much you were making?
You know, I was probably making $300 a month.
Okay.
As best I can remember. But Conoco was so good about having a situation where you were appraised quite often. Okay. And we call it counseling and appraisal session. Because later, see, I became a supervisor out there, and we had counseling and appraisal session. But there was not ever a time that my supervisor didn't know what I was doing. Okay. Now, we get lost in this anymore, because a lot of the time people don't know how good or what you're doing, see. And so we get lost in this. But it wasn't any time that Mr. Cobb didn't know, you know. And so I would get raises, you know. And then in 1966, I joined the Oklahoma National Guard. And so I had to take some time off for active duty. Conoco paid the difference between my Army salary, which was $85 a month, and my salary, which I had worked then, but it amounted to a lot, because of course my wife was working, but Conoco
Well, when you started working, did you have a uniform you'd have to wear?
It was green and white striped. Conoco had Conoco on. You know, I was real proud of that uniform because that was a neat uniform. I wish I had one today. I could probably still wear it because I haven't changed much in that time. I'm getting tall, see.
And how many folks were working in sales when you were there, when you started out?
The normal crew was about 15 to 18 people.
Wow.
Yeah, see, we 24-hour operation, 2 service areas,
okay.
North and south side, see.
Okay.
Yeah, north and south side. So we had 15 to 18 people all the time because we had 3 shifts. And never that I can remember, occasionally because somebody gets sick, on the day shift you always had about 5 or 6 people. On the evening shift about the same. The night shift you had 1 supervisor, one shift manager, and normally had 1 on each side because the traffic would slow down. Mm-hmm. And then in the summertime, of course this was after I became manager out there, at one time I had 27 people. Yeah.
And we're talking full service.
We're talking full service. I mean full service.
Explain to me full service.
Meet and greet. Somebody pulled up to that pump, you were prompt. You meet and you greet. And you ask what you could help them with because you didn't know their order. They would tell you, you wash that windshield, you wash those headlights, you wash those taillights. On occasions, now, we would sweep a car out, but as we didn't have a lot of time, but we would check the oil, the air filter, whatever they need. If they needed an oil change, we would ask them. We would ask them. We sold a lot of tires because the tires back then were not good. And that heat coming down, because we had a lot of people come from Canada. We had a lot of people from back east, I mean, you know, from out west. And those tires, sometimes people would come through and they were running on tires that were absolutely unsafe. So we tell them, we sold a lot of tires. We sold a lot of sundry items, okay, sunglasses. We sold a lot of things like, you know, later on we put in a full sundry rack because people needed headache pills. They needed everything, you know, and then we started selling Cokes, Pepsis. It was a full C-store that later on, but when we first started, we sold additives for you know, your crankcase. We sold oil changes. We sold all, and there was a need for it. Mm-hmm. But that was our job. We were sales representatives. We were there for Conoco, and we were there for the people that came down through there, because it wasn't on the turnpike. That turnpike was 88 miles long, and so during that 88 miles, a lot of things can happen. We did service calls. We did everything. We learned how to work.
Did you know much about cars before you started?
Yes. I knew. I grew up because I couldn't afford to have my car worked on at the shop, so I learned how to do it myself. Oh yeah, I knew cars. The cars that I had, if they needed something, I had to fix them. Change tires and I overhauled them. I mean, I worked on cars, worked on starters. Because things have changed since then. But that, on the farm you grew up, you had to do that.
Do you need some water?
Of course, I grew up, we still worked horses on the farm. We had a team. I milked cows. There wasn't anything that, if you were big enough, you had to do that. That was part of your job. That was, you paid for your raising. But the glass house was a unique building to work in. You met unique people. You met killers. Yes. You met them all there. You met all kind of people. Back then, that was the road between Chicago and Los Angeles. So there was people that was not. They were from all walks of life. I met them all. I met, I've talked to the FBI several times when I was manager, because there would be people come by that did bad things, and then they would stop there, okay? Well, and they would come and ask, well, who was on that shift when, and we had killers, we had, at that point in time, soon after that, the Border Patrol became very prevalent out there, because we would have truckloads of people that would come out of Mexico, and so the Border Patrol was there to take care of that problem. We had real good law enforcement. We had highway patrol, and they helped me several times because I had people who was going to kill me. So there was a lot of people, and people came through there that movie stars. I don't know that I can remember ever meeting any, but Floyd Patterson, you probably don't remember. Floyd Patterson was a heavyweight boxer, and I really liked watching box. And I got to meet Floyd. Nicest guy you ever seen. Recognized him right off. I called him by name. He looked at me kind of funny. But, I knew him. It was amazing. It was amazing. I mean, every day you met somebody that was different. Some enhanced your life, some didn't. But every day it was amazing. And of course I worked out there for 18 years. So there was a lot of days, And so every day was an experience. And you knew that. You knew that when you went in. Every day was an experience. And then, of course, I I got to meet people like LeVon, lots of good people, you know, they were international hosts. That was the company that, and then Howard Johnson's took that. And I dealt with them because we owned the building, see. And so that was part of the thing.
How long until you became a manager?
You know, it was after I did my active duty, and you know, I'm going to say it was probably, and it was, you know, 1960, well, became assistant manager. Actually I became a main assistant manager. There was an assistant shift manager, then there was assistant manager, which the shift manager took care of that shift. The assistant manager took care of all things, personnel. And it was probably in late 1965, because, or first of 66, when I became the assistant manager, because I had to have a stand-in while I went to active duty, but I had my job when I got back. And then they changed it to manager of Vinita concession facility for Conoco, because my boss went in to what they call the Turnpike manager for Conoco. So, you know, it was just a title. It was, oh yeah, you had different, you know, you had more responsibility. But as you grew up doing that, well, you didn't have any problem with that, you know. It was just different because you had to handle personnel. And personnel's hard to handle.
Well, how did you start to see your job change and evolve?
The thing that changed the most was probably when we got the oil embargo in 1973, okay? Because when you limit people to what they can buy, then you start stepping on their toes. And allocation was something that come along. And we deal with allocation now, but we dealt with it there in a different manner because it was not something that we ever had. But each customer was allocated just so much. We had to hold that allocation because of our allocation. And we sold a lot of petroleum. We sold a lot.
How much is a lot?
Well, back then, and you know, this has been a long time ago, because I worked for Green Country for 32 years. But we had two 8,000-gallon tanks, okay? And so, you know, I had a call. I probably would gauge those tanks. I'd gauge them every day. But I probably had a call for transport every 2 days. And in the summertime, you just keep one coming. Okay? And that, I know that's probably not as much as it is now. I don't know, I don't have a clue. But when you pump 8,000 gallon a day, you know, of course, back then, gasoline wasn't quite as expensive as it is now. But we had a lot of money. And that was my job. I had a lot of money. Well,
in 73, were some of your customers irate?
Absolutely.
Upset?
Absolutely irate and upset and mad. If you wanted to,
It's hard to be a good salesman if they're irate.
absolutely, you had to be, but you had to tell them that this wasn't going to be the last stop before they got to Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
There would be other places to stop and get fuel. And you know, going into the summer of '73, it was common knowledge that there was going to be lines, so there was going to be a shortage. But it was hard for us to get acclimated to. Irate customers are never easy to acclimate to. So I had to remind the boys that this was probably not a lasting thing, that we had to be good representatives of the brand. Okay?
Did you ever have to shut down the petroleum end of things during that time? Run out of gas?
Yes, we run out of gas. Yes. That is always the worst time. Yeah. We've had to do that. But probably the worst thing that could happen to you back then was when you run out of electricity.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I mean, when that source is down, and that would happen, you know, because of just, you know, I think what it is now. I mean, and probably the worst thing was a big snowstorm or a big ice storm when they couldn't go any farther. And Lamont can tell you how many was stacked up in the lobbies and in the floor sleeping. And that is not good, because you still have to be there to take care of that. And wasn't easy, but part of life.
I was going to ask about the impact of weather, especially in Oklahoma.
Very much. People would try to travel that turnpike when snow was so deep, and they would get stuck, and of course they'd have to have a wrecker, or they would run out of fuel, and we would have to make service calls. And it's always so dangerous, you know, to send a guy out 10 miles because there's been some real bad accidents out there, still on, because people drive fast. There still is that, you know, we've had accidents right there at we had to pull one guy out of a burning car. You know, everything. We had one guy that lost his trailer up coming down the road, and it come in my side door. But it didn't hurt him. He was upset. Oh, I said, sir, it didn't hurt anybody. Just broke my door, busted my glass. But it didn't hurt anybody. It didn't hurt your trailer. We'll back it out. You can go to it again. But it hurt anything. Cost his insurance some money, but you know, it didn't hurt him. Mm-hmm. So thankful for that. Because I just walked down that lobby not 10 seconds before that. So I was thankful. The Lord took care of that. So, you know, I could have been right there in the middle of that thing. I could have had that tongue of that trailer sticking in my mouth.
Well, Mr. Cobb gave you your start.
Mr. Cobb gave me my start.
And so, over time, you're now a manager. What do you look for when you're hiring an employee to give them their start?
I look for someone that is attentive. I look for someone that wants to work. It's different now. It's different now. We have spoiled children, and so maybe I shouldn't say that, but it's the truth. I spoil mine. But it's necessary that they want to do that. And I don't do the hiring. Sometimes I do the firing, but I don't now at my job now. I'll tell the guys that all they have to do is work. I will show them how. I will show them what they need to do. If it's necessary, I need them to write it down on a piece of paper. But it's necessary that they know what to do and the way to do it. We have to show them that, because that gives them the necessary tools they need to do that job. Now, you can't make them want to do it. That's got to come from inside. They've got to want to do that. If they don't want to do that, then you can't do it. If they want to do it, you can teach them how. I had a guy tell me one time, I hunted a lot when I was, and so my bird dog, my pointer bird dog, got old. And out there on the farm, I had a collie dog. And he went with me everywhere that I would let him. I would let him go hunting with me. And after the bird dog got, then I let him go hunting with me. And I taught him, well, I say I taught him, it wasn't long till he knew what I was looking for, okay? Now, he wasn't a pointer. He wasn't a bird dog. But he wanted to please me. So his nose allowed him to find those quail. And he would point those quail. It just took longer because he didn't have the natural ability. If you got natural ability, if you're a natural athlete, it is not hard to be an athlete. If you're not, you have to work at it. Mm-hmm. And that's what we have to do now. We have to work at it. Whether it is a job, marriage, we still have to work at it. We have to. It's necessary we work at it. If we don't, then we lose that.
Mm-hmm. Well, as customers were coming through for service, what were some of the questions you would get asked often?
How far it is to Amarillo? How far is it to Chicago? How far is it to wherever? How far is the end of the turnpike? Where's the restrooms? Where can I get something to eat? That probably was the most common. Probably the first question after you would ask them what you could do for them, they would tell you, and they would say, and where is the restroom? Okay. And so we would direct them to the restroom. And then, of course, they would do the transaction, okay? And then they would say, if it's a westbound lane, lane. We had an eastbound lane. Because in westbound lane, they would say, well, how far is it to Oklahoma City? Or how far is it to Amarillo, Texas? Or if you were working the eastbound lane, it was how far was Chicago? That was probably the biggest thing, was how far was it to Chicago? Hmm. More people were going to Chicago. Or more people were going to, now, I'm sure that they were going to California, but, you know, they didn't want to hear 1,580 miles of Los Angeles. They wanted to hear 428 miles to Amarillo. Because they had to go through Amarillo before they got to Los Angeles.
Hmm. Can you kind of talk about some of the outside structures that you impacted your work? So you had, you know, the eastbound and westbound service areas. Were there other structures on the property? Was there like a lube room or a place where you made change, or?
You know, no, of course we had what we call our lube bays.
Okay.
Because we had lifts, we changed oil, we changed tires, we changed fan belts, we changed alternators, we you know, did everything because the cars were simple, you know. Mm-hmm. We had little rest areas where they could pull out. We had our diesel fuel pump was down on an island by itself. We had we made change inside. We kept no money in our pocket. We made change inside. Because it's safer that way. But really there wasn't any, you know, it was, the area was pretty clean. Of course there were light poles, you know, and we had little islands of grass, which was just landscape, you know, where people drove in. You know, they'd go drive, they would, you never knew, you know.
Well, go ahead and describe for me the inside of the archway.
Okay, of course we had state, we had our service, our station out front. Mm-hmm. It was out on you know, on, and then there was a lobby, okay? And inside that lobby, we had the restrooms, okay? And then from there, you went into another lobby, which was the entrance to the restaurant. That was where the restaurant entrance started, okay? And on the west side, my office was over on the right, back in the corner. And then we had a set of up and down escalators. And directly in front of you when you went through the door. Over to the right, we had elevators. A hydraulic elevator, 1 floor type deal. And then of course you could take the elevator, you could take the escalator, you know, up. And the stairs come around this way. They didn't use stairs much, they used the escalators, you know, and they weren't the ribbon rail type, they were old chain ribbon escalators, but you know, that's all we had back then. And they made a lot of noise, and they'd catch people's shoes. If you know, the kids would ride down the escalator, but they would, you know, they'd hold on to that rail, and when they got down to the bottom, instead of stepping off, they'd let that escalator run down in that fork, see, and catch them shoes. Screaming and hollering. And we'd go get them out and cheer. You know, it was, but that was part of it, you know, and the elevators were, later on, they got where they sometimes would hang up, we'd have to go down and get them. But, you know, you learn how to do that.
Would you frequent the restaurant or the snack bar at all?
Oh, yes, we went up there all the time, you know, and drank coffee and talked to the ladies. And and they were good to us. You know, they were good to us, but they helped us, and it was just something that was allowed. I mean, you know, and we helped them.
Mm-hmm.
If they needed anything on the car, we helped them get that done. And we were actually out there. You were just kind of, that was your family. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, there's so many people. There's so many people that went through there. I mean, you know, you can't remember them all, and some of them you get real fond of, you know, because they're just really nice people. And but it was a good experience.
Anybody in particular come to mind who worked out there?
You mean from my area? Or
from either area?
Well, everybody. I mean, you work. Most of the people that I worked with are not here anymore. Mm-hmm. You know, but they were all. Yeah, I was their supervisor. I was their boss. But they were my friends. Some of them we had problems. You know, you had to terminate them, but you know it's a learning process. So some of them were terminated, or they're still my friend. I mean, some of the kids that see, we had a lot of summer people that come. Some of these kids are doctors now. And you know, and it's so enlightening to know that. You know, but you always feel like that you helped raise them because they were young, you know, and you try to take care of them and try to teach them what the, you know, and when even if they're not doctors, I'm still proud of them, you know, because that's part of their life.
So far this morning I've heard a lot of stories about Annabel Southern. Did you have any interactions with her?
All the time. Probably every day. Every day.
Tell me about her.
She was so full of energy. I could never figure out where she got all the energy. So knowledgeable of the business. I mean, you know, I look at, and I know the restaurant business changed a lot, but she knew the business. But you know, more than anything, she knew people. She knew people. She knew how to handle people. She knew. She worked a lot of people. And they had to be representatives too. They had to look nice all the time. They had to know what they were doing. I would say she demanded it. She expected it, okay? She wasn't demanding, she was expecting. And that's why the people that work for her, they knew that. They weren't afraid of her, but they knew what she expected. So full of energy. And took care of the business so well. You know, yeah, we dealt with Annabel a lot because we were the liaison on the building, see, between, of course, we had bosses that we had to report to, but a lot of the decisions on the building we had to make ourselves, you know, and anything that we had, plumbing, electric, we had to take care of that. It wasn't her responsibility. She had that part leased from us. Mm-hmm. But there would never be another one like her. I wish you could have known her. Just watching her and knowing her, and seeing what results came out of that enhanced my ability to take care of my business out there, because she knew what she was doing. I was young. She was seasoned. She was seasoned. She knew people so well. That and she produced some people that, you know, outstanding people because of her.
So you were there for 18 years. And so in your time, you saw the shift. A lot of things happening over time with the Glass House Restaurant in terms of its management. Can you kind of walk me through the changes?
Well, as far as management, see, there was changes in my end of the business.
Mm-hmm.
And in their in the restaurant, because see, at a point there, DuPont bought Conoco.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. DuPont made chemicals.
Mm-hmm. There was a change there because they were not in the petroleum business, marketing business. We were in the marketing business. At that point, the brand image changed. Mm-hmm.
Okay. It was bottom line. That's okay. I had enough accounting, I knew how to do that. But the change was then, okay? And so we went under a different auspice because people, they looked at it different. Upper level management looked at it different. So whenever you change from brand image to money image, there was change.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so that was different for me. Okay, but you know, when I made that changeover, we went to a big meeting and we sat down and I knew what to expect. So that's, you know, if you can't do it their way, you can't stay. So that's, you know, that's what I did. Now, you know, people changed. We went through the era of the hippies.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this was interesting. But then whenever the company started changing, we went from a triangle to an oval, Conoco. We were Continental Oil anymore, we were Conoco, see. And so things changed. The division changed, okay? We went from division to a regional situation. Went through that with Ford. Just, you know, because of the process of eliminating a bunch of stuff. Then Howard Johnson took over the restaurant. So, but Annabel continued there, but it was a different deal because we had to handle it different.
Mm-hmm.
Turnpike Authority. See, we dealt with the Turnpike Authority because we owned the building, but it was just leased to them, and they had they had their rules. So we dealt with that. No problem. You know, just do it their way, and everything's okay. And it wasn't hard to do it their way. It was different, but it's not hard to do things different.
So 18 years go by, and you decide to make a change.
Well, what happened was Conoco lost their lease.
Mm-hmm.
And there was other opportunities for me in a company, but at that time I had 2 young children. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want to go, you know, and the headquarters was in Houston. Phillips offered me a job as a manager because Phillips took that lease. But I wanted to do something else. I wanted to. So I went to work for Turnpike Authority in the maintenance and took care of the buildings. We had 3 or 4 that we had to take care of. And I had some schooling on that. And so I worked for them for 2 years. And then I guess that Conoco had put into me so much that I was a salesman. I was a salesman. And so in 1983, I took about 13 boys out to Cimarron to the Boy Scout range out there, Philmont Range, and on top of a mountain one night, I said, you know, this is what I'm going to do. If I get down, and I knew I was going to make it down there because I was 40 years old and I was in good shape. I said, I'm going to do something else. And I did.
Tell me what you did.
But that come from the Jim Cobbs
Mm-hmm.
and the Annabel Southerns and the people that I worked with. Excuse me,
You're fine.
I'm sorry.
Oh, you're fine.
You know, and the people that see this video, the kids, hey, you can do. You only limit yourself to what you can do. You limit yourself. You're given the ability to do anything almost. You limit yourself. I have limited myself in some things, I know that, but I'm getting old. But the start, the Jim Cobbs, the Annabel Southern, the people I worked with, the people I was associated with out there taught me a lot. Because I came off the farm. I knew how to milk cows. I knew how to drive horses. I knew how to ride horses. I knew how to feed pigs. But I didn't know how to handle the people. I didn't know how to handle the life outside of that. That taught me how to handle that life outside of that. It was worth everything. It was worth everything. Because you have it. Once you get it, you have it. And whatever it is, you know, but that's where it came from. Because of the people I met out there. People coming down the road. The people I waited on, that I dealt with. Different. Everyone was different.
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell you every state. I can tell you every state. I know people have changed. But it was, I don't want to mention any countries, but I've talked to them all.
So where'd you go? What did you do next?
When I came off of that mountain,
Yeah.
I said, I'm going to sell cars. So I began to find where I wanted to be. And I checked out a couple of places. And then Johnny McComb, Mike Campbell owned the Ford Company. Mm-hmm. I went to college with Mike. I worked for his dad in some summers back, and of course I knew Johnny McComb. And so one day I went in and I told Mike, I said, Mike, I want a job selling cars. Well, he said, Wayne, can you sell cars? I said, yeah, Mike, I can sell cars. He said, well, let me talk to John. John was his partner. John come in, he said, do you want to sell cars, Mike? John had loaned me his demo when I went on my honeymoon. Brand new 1964 Ford. And he loaned me that car to go on my honeymoon. Because my car wasn't the best. And he said, you want to sell cars, John? I said, yeah, John, I want to sell cars. He said, how many can you sell a month? And I said, well, probably 50. Well, he said, that's a lot. I said, well, okay. Maybe I can't sell 50, but that's what I think I can sell. And so he said, well, let Mike and I talk about it. I said, okay, I'll be back Saturday. So I went back Saturday and I said, I'm going to sell cars. And John said, okay. When you want to start? I said, well, I'd like to start on Saturdays because I was working this other job and give them some time, you know, because I believed in that. So I started on Saturdays and sold cars. And actually, the 1st of February of 1984, I went to work for Green Country Ford. And that was over 32 years ago. And have not. I still enjoy my job. Now my job has changed because I'm really not active in sales anymore. I still sell because I have so many customers. But I do the inventory and I do some things. But it's a job that I mean, I'm going to be 73, so I don't guess I got tired of it. So, you know, life's great. Life has been wonderful.
How many cars did you sell that first month?
You know, the first month that I sold 16 cars. And, you know, I was really upset because I thought I really thought, okay, because I knew I could meet the people, but what I didn't know was that not all of those people could buy what they wanted, okay? And I believed, in my heart, I believe that you ought to get what you want. Mm-hmm. That's so important, whatever it is. And so, and I'll tell you, I never reached that. I never quit wanting to do that, but I never reached that goal. But it never bothered me because I didn't reach that goal, because I've sold as many as 35 a month. You know, as you get older, you slow down. You can't maintain that. It's like running. You know, you can't maintain that. But you can always want to do that. I still want to do it. I still want to do it. I'm working every day. I still want to do it.
Tell me a little bit about your family.
You know, with my dad and mother, they both passed now. I have a sister that lives here in town, and one lives in Collinsville, and one lives in Oologah. I have a brother that lives in Dallas.
Okay.
I had 2 children. I had a boy and a girl, and my boy, died in a car wreck when he was 18, just got out of high school. I have a daughter that lives here in town, and I have one grandson, and they're really important to me. Have a good son-in-law, Kevin and Lori. Lori's my daughter. Kevin it sells boats over at the lake. Helps me immensely. And the grandson that I play golf with a lot. He's 17 and we grew up together. We got a black belt in karate together. We started out golf together. He's been an encouragement to me because he keeps me in shape. You have to keep moving. So, so that's what I have, and of course we live. We bought the new house. We bought a new house in 1973, and we still live there because we liked it when we bought it. When we used to live somewhere.
And is your wife retired these days?
My wife's retired. She takes care of the house and the dog and whoever else she needs to. She's a good woman. She's a good girl, and so pretty happy.
Well, looking back on your time you spent working for Conoco at the glass house, what's one thing you want to make sure and tell us before we close out today? What is something we definitely need to know about your experience?
I don't know of any one thing that I could put a finger on. All of it was an experience. Every day was an experience. So, one day better than that. Well, we had some bad days. You always have bad days. Lots and lots of good days. Yeah. I don't know of anything, there were just so many things happened in that 18 years, that you look back and I don't know of anything that I could say was the best or the worst. Because there was just so many things. I mean, there's no way to talk. There's no way to tell all of the good things or all of the bad things. No, but there wasn't a lot of bad things. There wasn't, because if there had been, I probably would. I don't know. It was all good. I look back, and you can, some people look back and say, well, I wish I had it. I wish I had it. Well, that's okay. But what we need to say is, I'm so glad I did. I'm so glad I did that. That I got the opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
Not everybody did. I did. Lavon, Francis, Judy. That was Judy the woman. I hadn't seen her in a long time. I got to meet those people. Otherwise, you meet those people. Wouldn't they? I wouldn't have got to meet them.
Good memories, good people.
So, that part of it, I mean, yeah, the Jim Cobbs, the Speedy Womans, the Bill Dohertys, the Mac McFarlands, the Don Giles, Jack Wofford, the Robert Lawhons, the Kenny Chandlers. Hope Kenny gets to see this. He's still, those guys, precious people. Precious people. A lot of them are gone. They were precious people. And there's so many others. You know, there's so many others that, the Bill Cobbs and the Tom Cobbs, and they were kids, but, you know, Bill still says that I helped him grow up, and I don't know if I did, but I don't know, see, that's part of your life. Never gets old talking about it, because part of your life.
Well, Wayne, I appreciate you sharing some of your memories working for Conoco and the Glass House with us today. We could probably be here for hours talking about it, but
Probably could.
but I definitely appreciate it, and the passion you share for that time period. It's definitely comes through.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.